Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something you probably never truly appreciated from your comfy couch, surrounded by all your modern conveniences. We're diving deep into the grim reality of what it meant to be a peasant in medieval Europe, a life far, far removed from the romanticized tales of chivalry and grand castles. Forget the minstrels and the feasts. We're going to strip away the myth and expose the raw, brutal truth. If you're ready for a genuinely eye-opening journey into a past that makes your worst day look like a vacation, then make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is in the comments below. Alright, find that cozy spot, pull your blanket up high, dim the lights, and let's journey back to a time of unrelenting hardship. You are born, not with a choice, not with a dream of what you might become, but into a life already meticulously charted for you by generations of servitude. From the first gasp of air in your rudimentary hovel, you belong to the land, and by extension, to the Lord who owns that land. This isn't just about paying rent. This is about your very essence being a chattel, an appendage of the earth beneath your calloused feet. Imagine a world where your freedom, your movement, your very right to exist is not an inherent birthright, but a privilege granted, or, more accurately, withheld by another human being. This is your reality, an inescapable truth that wraps around your neck tighter than any physical collar, an invisible yoke that you will bear until the day you are lowered into the same earth you toiled. Your entire universe is the manor. Cast your eyes across the fields, the patchy woodlands, the winding stream, and the clustered hovels where your kin huddle together. This is it. This is the extent of your world, a small, insular cosmos where every sunrise brings the same unyielding demands, and every sunset leaves you utterly depleted. You see the Lord's imposing manor house, usually built on a slight rise, its stone walls a stark contrast to your Waterland daub shack. It's a constant, towering reminder of who holds the power, who dines on roasted meats while you gnaw on meager bread, who sleeps in a soft bed while you shiver on a straw pallet. That grand structure isn't just a house. It's the physical embodiment of your oppression, a fortress built on your sweat and aching muscles. From the moment you can walk, you understand that your life is not your own. Your father, weary and bent, works the Lord's domain, his back a testament to the ceaseless labor, and you, as soon as your small hands can grip a tool, will follow in his footsteps. There is no escape, no alternative path. Education is a fantasy, a privilege reserved for the cloistered monks or the Lord's own children. For you, the classroom is the field, the lesson is survival, and the teacher is the unforgiving soil. The feudal system isn't a theory you read about in dusty books. It's the very air you breathe, heavy with obligation and unspoken dread. You are a serf, perhaps a villain, a technicality that offers little solace. You are bound to the soil, ad scriptus glebi, as the Latin texts would coldly put it. This means you cannot leave. Pack up your meager possessions, your threadbare tunic, your wooden bowl, and try to walk away from this manor, and you risk everything. The Lord's reeve, his watchful eyes everywhere, would track you down. And the punishment for such audacity, it doesn't bear thinking about. Your world is a prison without walls, its bars forged from tradition, power, and the sheer brutal necessity of survival. Where would you go anyway? Every manor has its lord, every lord his serfs. The entire landscape is a patchwork of these little kingdoms, each ruled by its own autocrat, each with its own specific burdens. You are not a citizen of a nation. You are a possession of a man. Your obligations are endless, precise, and often humiliating. First and foremost, you owe labor service, the dreaded corvée. Imagine waking before dawn, your stomach rumbling with hunger, your muscles already stiff from yesterday's toil, knowing that today, like countless days before, you will not be working your own small strip of land, the one that meagerly feeds your family. Instead, you will be on the Lord's domain, his personal fields, tilling, sowing, harvesting, often for days or even weeks on end, without pay, without gratitude, often under the watchful, critical eye of the bailiff or the reeve. You will see your own crops languish, your family's food supply dwindle, while you pour your life force into filling the Lord's granaries. You are working yourself into an early grave, not for your own betterment, but for the comfort and sustenance of a man who sees you as little more than a beast of burden. The sun beats down on your unprotected head, or the freezing rain turns the soil to thick, clinging mud soaking through your threadbare clothing. You wipe the sweat from your eyes with a dirt-caked hand, your back screaming in protest, but you dare not slacken. To do so is to invite the whip, or, at the very least, a reduction in the already paltry amount of common land you're allowed to graze your scrawny livestock on, beyond labor. There are taxes. So many taxes. You pay in kind, a portion of your harvest, a tithe of your livestock, a share of your eggs, your honey, your cheese. Imagine meticulously tending your small garden, watching your crops grow, only to know that a significant portion of it will not nourish your children, but will instead disappear into the Lord's coffers. It feels like a constant bleeding, a draining of your very lifeblood, leaving you perpetually teetering on the edge of starvation. Then there are the banalities, a word that sounds innocuous enough, but in practice means further extortion. You cannot grind your grain in your own rudimentary hand corn. You must take it to the Lord's mill, and for the privilege of using his heavy millstones, you pay a fee, typically a portion of the flour itself. The same goes for baking your bread in the communal oven, or pressing your grapes, if you even have any, or apples for cider. These aren't conveniences. They're mandated monopolies, designed to extract every last morsel of value from your existence. You watch as a portion of your precious flour is scooped away, knowing full well that you could have done it yourself, for free, in your hovel, if only you were permitted. This systematic exploitation isn't just economic, it's psychological, a constant reminder of your subservience, your utter powerlessness. Even the most personal aspects of your life are not your own. You wish to marry, you must seek the Lord's permission, and often pay a fee, the merchant, to do so. Marrying outside the manor, that's almost certainly forbidden, as it would mean a loss of your labor for the Lord, and thus a loss of his property. Your children are not just your offspring. They are future laborers, future serfs, already claimed by the Lord before they even draw breath. You are not allowed to hunt in the Lord's forests, even if your family is starving and game abounds just beyond the edge of your fields. Poaching is a serious crime, punishable by mutilation or death, because the Lord's game is for his table, not yours. You gaze into the deep, dark woods, knowing there is food within, but the fear of the Lord's justice, swift and brutal, keeps your family's hunger gnawing. This absolute lack of control over your destiny is perhaps the most brutal aspect of your life. You live under the shadow of the Lord's arbitrary will. His word is law. His mood determines your fate. If he is generous, you might receive a small allowance of firewood from the common woods. If he is cruel, he might demand extra labor or impose new, unforeseen taxes. Knowing full well you have no recourse, no avenue of appeal, you learn to walk with your head down, to speak only when spoken to cultivate an air of meekness and compliance. To show defiance, even in the smallest way, is to risk starvation, beating, or expulsion from the only community you have ever known, which for a serf is a death sentence. There are no written contracts you can appeal to, no abstract notion of human rights. There is only the power dynamic, the Lord, a near God in your eyes, and you, his humble, expendable servant. Think about your modern life, where you can move freely, pursue any profession, marry anyone you choose, and own your own property. You vote for your leaders, or at least have some mechanism to express your dissatisfaction. You pay taxes to a state that theoretically works for the common good, not to an individual who treats you as his personal resource. The contrast is staggering. For you, the peasant, such freedoms are unimaginable luxuries, the stuff of dreams you barely dare to entertain. Your existence is a cyclical grind, tied to the land, defined by obligation, and utterly devoid of personal agency. The iron collar of the manor is not merely a metaphor. It is the inescapable reality of your life, shaping every waking moment and haunting every fleeting dream. You are born into this servitude. You will live within its confines, and you will die having known no other way. This is the foundation of your pure hell. Asterisk. Wake up. The first sliver of gray light barely penetrates the perpetual gloom of your hovel, but the insistent crow of the cock, or perhaps the sharp nudge from your spouse, tells you it's time. Your body, a constant symphony of aches and stiffness, protests. Every joint creaks, every muscle groans, a permanent reminder of yesterday's relentless toil. This isn't a temporary soreness after a workout. This is the pervasive, bone-deep fatigue that becomes the very texture of your existence. You drag yourself from the straw pallet, pushing aside the sleeping forms of your children, their small bodies still blissfully unaware of the brutal rhythm that awaits them in a few short years. You stumble out into the pre-dawn chill, the air biting at your exposed skin, your breath pluming in white clouds. There's no hot coffee, no nourishing breakfast waiting. Maybe a crust of stale bread, washed down with murky water or weak ale, just enough to put a vague protest against the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. And then it's out to the fields. The fields, they are your life, your master, your eternal tormentor. They stretch out endlessly, often divided into 3 vast sections in the communal open field system. This year, one might be fallow, resting, while the other to demand your ceaseless attention. Today, perhaps, it's plowing. You grasp the rough wooden handles of the ard, or the heavier wheeled plow, if you are fortunate enough to share one. It's a primitive tool, a far cry from the roaring, diesel-powered machines of your future. It barely scratches the surface of the earth, often requiring multiple passes to turn the soil. But it's all you have. The ground is hard, compacted by seasons of rain and sun, and the clay clings stubbornly. You lean into the plow, putting every ounce of your meager strength into guiding it, the thick rope chafing your shoulder as you strain against the stubborn earth. Ahead of you, the ox, a slow, powerful beast, pulls steadily, but even its brute strength requires your constant, guiding effort. You are a living extension of this primitive machine, sweat stinging your eyes as you trudge back and forth, for hours on end. The furrows growing agonizingly slowly behind you. The smell of turned earth is everywhere, a raw, primal scent that permeates your clothing, your hair, your very pores. It gets under your fingernails, embedded in the lines of your palms, a constant reminder that you are literally part of this ground. The sun rises higher, beating down, or the incessant drizzle soaks you to the bone. There is no respite, no break. The concept of a lunch hour, a coffee break, is as alien to you as the idea of flying to the moon. You eat where you work, a piece of bread, maybe some cheese or dried meat if you're lucky, consumed quickly as you lean against the plow, snatching a moment of stillness before the back-breaking rhythm resumes. Your hands, already calloused and cracked, grow more so with each passing hour. The wood of the plow handles rubbing them raw. Blisters form, burst, and reform, becoming a permanent feature of your grip. Your shoulders ache, your lower back screams, a deep, persistent throb that never truly goes away. You learn to ignore it, or rather, to integrate it into your existence. A constant companion that reminds you of your place in this brutal hierarchy of labor. Then comes the sowing. You carry a heavy bag of seeds, often wheat or barley, slung over your shoulder. With a rhythmic swing of your arm, you scatter the precious kernels across the freshly plowed furrows. This isn't a precise science. It's a prayer, a gamble against the unpredictable forces of nature. Too much wind, and the seeds scatter uselessly. Too much rain, and they wash away. Not enough rain, and they won't germinate. Your livelihood, the very survival of your family, rests on the capricious whims of the weather. A silent, all-powerful God that can bless you with abundance or condemn you to famine. You walk for miles, covering every inch of your allocated strip of land, your arm growing heavy, your neck stiff from constantly looking down, ensuring an even spread. Each seed represents a hope, a desperate plea for sustenance, a fragile promise of survival. Weeding, oh, the weeding. As the crops begin to sprout, so do the relentless weeds, competitors for the meager nutrients in the soil. You spend countless hours, bent double, your face inches from the ground, meticulously pulling up unwanted plants. Imagine this for hours, days, weeks on end. Your spine curves into a permanent arc, your eyes blur from the strain, and the sheer monotony of the task can drive you to the brink of madness. You see ants crawling, tiny insects buzzing, your world reduced to a patch of dirt and the endless battle against nature's unchecked growth. There's no fancy gardening tool, just your bare hands, or perhaps a small, blunt knife. Thorns prick your skin, nettles sting, and the sun bakes your exposed neck. You straighten up for a moment, groaning as your joints pop, stretching your aching back, only to bend down again, knowing the work will never truly be finished. And then the harvest. This is the crescendo of your year, the most intense and critical period, a mad dash against time and the elements. All hands are on deck, children, elderly, everyone who can wield a sickle or gather sheaves. The fields, once green and vibrant, are now golden, heavy with the promise of sustenance. But that promise must be wrested from the stalks with brutal effort. You grasp a handful of grain, slicing through the tough stems with your short, curved sickle, each sweep a precise, practiced motion. Imagine doing this thousands upon thousands of times, from dawn until dusk, your grip aching, your thumb developing a permanent groove from the pressure. You move in a line with your fellow villagers, a human tide slowly advancing across the field, leaving a trail of neatly bundled sheaves in your wake. The air is thick with dust, chaff, and the dry, sweet smell of ripening grain. It gets into your lungs, making you cough, coating your skin, matting your hair. Your back, already a ruin, is pushed to its absolute limits. You might cut yourself, a common occurrence. The blood mingling with the dust and dirt, a small sacrifice to the earth. The urgency is palpable. A sudden storm, a prolonged period of rain, can devastate weeks of labor, turning your precious harvest into a moldy, unsalvageable mess. So you work faster, harder, pushing through the pain, through the exhaustion, through the gnawing anxiety that tomorrow's weather might snatch everything away. You carry the heavy sheaves, bundling them, then loading them onto rudimentary carts, or worse, carrying them yourself on your aching back to the threshing floor. There, the grain must be separated from the chaff, often by flailing the stalks with heavy wooden tools, a rhythmic pounding motion that sends clouds of dust and fine particles into the air. Your eyes burn, your throat is raw, and your arms feel like lead. Or perhaps it's done by oxen tramping over the grain, a slightly less strenuous method, but still requiring supervision and endless raking. This dusty, noisy, relentless process continues until every last grain is rescued. The cycle repeats, year after brutal year. There is no automation, no machinery to ease your burden. Every task, from the most minor to the most monumental, is performed by hand, by muscle, by sheer, unyielding will. The tools are simple, often poorly maintained, and prone to breaking, causing delays and further hardship. You rely on animal power, oxen or horses if you're lucky, but even they demand care, feeding, and training, adding another layer of responsibility to your already overburdened life. The knowledge of farming, passed down from generation to generation, is your only true inheritance, a legacy of suffering and survival. You read the clouds, feel the change in the wind, instinctively know when to plant, when to harvest, when to pray for rain, when to curse the sun. This intimate, visceral connection to the land is not romantic. It is a bond forged in desperation, a chain that links you inextricably to the harsh realities of agricultural life. Compare this to your modern life. You buy your food from a brightly lit grocery store, packaged and processed, with no concept of the back-breaking labor that produced it. You have machines to do your bidding. Your daily grind often involves pushing buttons or tapping keys, not straining against stubborn earth or wielding a sharp sickle for 14 hours straight. The closest you come to physical exertion might be a gym workout, which you choose to do and which you can stop when you feel tired. For you, the peasant, there is no choice. There is no stopping until the sun sets, or until the reeve tells you to, or until your body simply gives out. The fields are not a picturesque landscape. They are a battleground, and your body is the weapon, slowly but surely being broken by the unrelenting demands of survival. This endless, repetitive, physically destructive labor is not just hard work. It is the very essence of your pure hell, a daily sentence of exhaustion and pain that leaves you with nothing but aching bones and the desperate hope that tomorrow will not be worse. Close your eyes for a moment and picture your home. Perhaps it's a spacious apartment, a comfortable house, filled with amenities you take for granted: running water, electricity, a warm bed, a flush toilet, privacy. Now, strip all of that away, every single modern comfort, and then strip away more. You are not just going back in time. You are descending into a reality that would make your current living situation feel like a king's palace. Your home, your sanctuary, is none of those things. It is a hovel, a shack, a crude, dim, and often unsanitary dwelling that offers little comfort and barely adequate shelter from the brutal medieval elements. This isn't a quaint cottage. It's a testament to utter destitution, a place where the line between human and animal existence blurs into an uncomfortable reality. Imagine it. Your dwelling is a single room, maybe two, if you are exceptionally wealthy by peasant standards, but more often just one communal space for your entire family. The walls are made of wattle and daub, a mixture of woven branches, wattle plastered with mud, clay, straw, and animal dung daub. It's effective enough to keep out most of the wind and rain, but it's far from insulated. In winter, the cold seeps through every crack, chilling you to the bone even indoors. In summer, the sun bakes the crude walls, turning your hovel into a stifling oven. The floor is simply packed earth, damp and uneven, becoming a muddy swamp when it rains heavily or a dusty surface in dry spells. There are no carpets, no polished wooden floors, just the raw ground you walk on, shared with whatever dirt and debris you track in from the fields. The roof is thatched, usually with straw or reeds, thick and providing reasonable insulation, but it's a constant fire hazard. A stray spark from your hearth, or even a particularly dry season, can turn your entire home into an inferno in minutes. And it's not just fire. Rats, mice, and all manner of insects find the thatch a perfect breeding ground. They're scurrying and scratching, a constant, irritating soundtrack to your nights. You hear them above your head, a persistent reminder of the untamed nature that presses in on all sides, even within your supposed shelter. Inside, the darkness is profound. Windows, if you have any at all, are small, unglazed openings, covered with wooden shutters, or perhaps a piece of oiled animal hide to keep out the worst of the weather. They let in very little light, meaning that even in the middle of the day, your hovel is a gloomy, shadowed space. At night, your only source of illumination is the flickering, smoky light of the central hearth. Imagine that. No light switches, no electric lamps, no easy way to chase away the encroaching darkness. The hearth, usually in the center of the room, is a simple stone circle on the earth floor, or a pit where you burn wood for heat and cooking. There's no chimney, at least not in the modern sense. A small hole in the roof, or simply the door left ajar, is meant to allow the smoke to escape. But it never truly does. The air inside your hovel is perpetually thick with acrid wood smoke, stinging your eyes, making your throat raw, and permeating every single object you own, including your clothes and hair. You are accustomed to the smell, but it's a constant irritant, a silent assailant on your lungs, contributing to respiratory illnesses that plague you and your family. And then there are your housemates, not just your immediate family, but often your livestock too. Your precious cow, your few chickens, perhaps a pig or two, share your single room. They provide warmth, yes, their body heat a welcome comfort in the frigid winters, but they also provide smells. Imagine the pervasive stench of animal waste, mixed with the damp earth, the smoky air, and the general human odors of an unwashed family. It's a smell that clings to everything, a permanent feature of your existence. You become nose-blind to it, but it's undeniably there, a constant assault on your senses. The animals bring with them fleas, lice, and other parasites, which readily transfer to you and your children, causing incessant itching, skin infections, and carrying diseases. You sleep on straw pallets, laid directly on the earth floor, sharing what little warmth you can generate with your entire family, and often with the animals as well. Privacy is an alien concept. Every sound, every movement, every breath is shared. There is no quiet corner to retreat to, no private thought unobserved. Sanitation is a concept that simply doesn't exist in your world. There's no latrine inside, no outhouse, a safe distance away. When nature calls, you relieve yourself wherever is convenient, usually a designated spot just outside the hovel, or simply in the surrounding fields or woods. The waste accumulates, attracts flies, breeds disease, and pollutes the very ground you live on and from which you draw water. Your water source is often a communal well or a nearby stream, easily contaminated by human and animal waste upstream. Imagine drinking water that you know, deep down, is probably teeming with unseen dangers, but you have no other choice. Boiling it is an option, but that requires precious firewood and time, a luxury you often can't afford. You rarely bathe, perhaps a full wash only a few times a year in cold water if you're lucky enough to have a tub. Imagine the accumulation of dirt, sweat, smoke, and grime on your body, the itching, the feeling of perpetual uncleanliness. Your clothes are few, coarse, and rarely washed, clinging to you like a second skin, carrying the smells and dirt of your daily life. Disease is an ever-present specter, a silent killer stalking your family. The unsanitary conditions, the constant smoke, the poor diet, and the lack of proper hygiene create a perfect breeding ground for illness. A cough can quickly turn into a fatal pneumonia. A small cut, easily infected, can lead to a limb being lost or death by sepsis. Your children are particularly vulnerable. You've buried so many already. You learn to brace yourself, to steel your heart for the inevitable. The wailing of a sick child in the dim, smoky hovel is a familiar sound, a constant reminder of your helplessness in the face of nature's brutal indifference. There are no doctors, no medicines, no understanding of germ theory. The remedies are folk cures, prayers, and desperate hopes, often ineffective, sometimes harmful. When sickness strikes, you simply lie on your straw pallet, shivering with fever, coughing, or racked with pain, and pray to God or the saints that you survive. Often, You don't sleep is not a peaceful reprieve, but a fitful, shallow affair. The hard, lumpy straw pallet offers little comfort. The constant sounds of mice in the thatch, the snores of your family, the rustling of the animals, the biting, cold or oppressive heat, the itching from fleas and lice, all conspire to deny you true rest. You wake multiple times in the night, your body still aching, your mind already dreading the demands of the coming day. Dreams are often of food or warmth or a brief moment of respite, but even those are tinged with the bleak reality of your waking life. This is your home. It's not a space of personal expression or comfort, but a functional shelter designed for mere survival. It offers little privacy, no sanitation, constant discomfort, and is a breeding ground for disease. It is a crude, the basic dwelling that you build with your own hands, with materials gathered from the land, perpetually needing repairs. The thought of your modern home, with its soft bed, clean sheets, hot shower, and endless stream of entertainment, is so utterly alien to your medieval mind that it would seem like a fantastical heaven. But for you, the peasant, this smoky, cramped, smelly, unsanitary hovel is all you have, a constant reminder of your place at the very bottom of society, a den of misery that defines a significant part of your pure hell. Imagine a life where the phrase, "What's for dinner?" isn't a casual question, but a primal anxiety, a constant gnawing worry that often has no satisfying answer. Forget your myriad choices at the supermarket, the endless cuisines available for delivery, the ability to simply grab a snack whenever hunger strikes. For you, a peasant in medieval Europe, food is not a pleasure. It is a battle for survival, a monotonous, meager, and often insufficient struggle against the ever-present specter of starvation. Your diet isn't about nutrition or variety. It's about calories, enough to fuel your back-breaking labor, enough to keep you and your family alive for another day, another week, another year. And often, you barely have even that. Your daily staple, the very foundation of your existence, is grain, usually barley, oats, or rye, occasionally wheat if you're slightly better off, or if the harvest has been exceptionally good. This grain is ground into flour, usually at the Lord's mill for a fee, of course, and then made into bread or porridge. Imagine bread so dense and dark, it feels like a rock in your hand, made from coarse, unrefined flour, sometimes mixed with peas or beans to stretch it further. This isn't the fluffy white bread of your modern world. It's heavy, chewy, and often stale. You eat it every single day, for every meal, often the only substantial thing that passes your lips. Porridge, a thick gruel made from oats or barley, cooked with water, or a bit of milk if you have a cow, is another constant. It's bland, monotonous, and merely functional. You eat it morning, noon, and night, day after day, week after week. The taste of your food becomes a dull, repetitive background hum in your life, never exciting, rarely satisfying, simply present. Vegetables are primarily root vegetables, carrots, parsnips, turnips, onions grown in your small garden plot alongside cabbages, peas, and beans. These are vital to supplement your grain-heavy diet, providing what little vitamins and minerals you manage to get, but they are seasonal. In winter, fresh vegetables are a distant memory, and you rely on what you could preserve: dried peas, perhaps some salted cabbage, or roots stored in a cellar if you have one. Often, these stores run low or spoil, leaving you with even less. You are deeply, intimately familiar with the taste of watery vegetable pottage, cooked slowly over the smoky fire, seasoned with little more than salt, if you can afford it. Herbs from the hedgerows or your garden add a fleeting flavor, but they can't mask the underlying blandness and lack of richness. Meat is a rare, almost mythical treat. You don't have the luxury of raising animals purely for slaughter. Your livestock, your precious cow, your few chickens, your pig are capital, vital for their milk, eggs, or as a source of manure for your fields. To slaughter an animal is to lose an essential asset, an act of desperation. Perhaps at a major feast day, like Christmas or Easter, if the Lord is feeling generous, or if an animal is old or sick, you might get a taste of pork or chicken. Imagine the joyous, almost frantic anticipation of that single meal, the rich, unfamiliar taste, a shock to your system, a brief glimpse of what others enjoy regularly. Most of the time, your meat comes from foraging, squirrels, pigeons, maybe a rabbit if you're incredibly lucky and manage to snare one without being caught by the Lord's gamekeeper. But these are small, fleeting additions, not consistent sources of protein. Fish, too, is a luxury for many landlocked peasants, or reserved for fast days decreed by the church. If you live near a river or coast, you might have access to fresh fish, but even then, it's often a case of needing to pay a fee to fish, or risking punishment for poaching. Dried or salted fish might be traded in, but it's expensive and not a daily staple. You dream of it, the savory taste, the richness, but these are merely dreams. Dairy products are a slightly more regular feature, if you are fortunate enough to own a cow or a few goats. Milk, butter, and cheese provide much-needed fat and protein, but again, these are not endless supplies. A cow gives milk for a limited time after calving, and your yield is small, often barely enough for your family, with some needing to be given to the Lord as a tax. You hoard every drop, every crumb of cheese, knowing its value. Seasonality is not a concept you can ignore. It dictates your very survival. Spring brings the leanest times, the hungry gap, when last year's stores are dwindling and the new crops have yet to ripen. Imagine the constant ache in your stomach during these months, the faintness, the desperation. You forage for wild greens, berries, mushrooms, anything to fill the void, to provide some meager sustenance. But foraging is dangerous, too. Misidentifying a plant can lead to sickness or death, and straying too far into the woods might put you on the Lord's land, a risk you take only out of extreme hunger. Summer brings a slight reprieve with fresh vegetables and fruits, but this is also the peak season for arduous field work, meaning you need even more calories just to function. Autumn is the time of abundance, the harvest bringing a brief period of relative plenty, when granaries are full and animals are slaughtered before winter. But even this bounty is quickly reduced by the Lord's taxes, the church's tithes, and the sheer number of mouths to feed. Winter means relying on stored provisions, often of dubious quality, and enduring the gnawing cold on an already weakened body. Malnutrition is not an abstract medical term. It is your reality. You are constantly undersized, your body thin and wiry from the unceasing labor and insufficient calories. Your children suffer from rickets, their bones soft and bowed. You all have dull, sparse hair, brittle nails, and skin that often cracks and bleeds. You are prone to every passing illness, your immune system weakened by years of inadequate nutrition. A simple cold can become a life-threatening pneumonia because your body lacks the reserves to fight it off. Your eyesight may be poor due to vitamin deficiencies, and your energy levels are perpetually low, pushed only by sheer willpower and the fear of starving. You are literally wasting away, slowly, day by day, year by year. Famine, the ultimate terror, is always lurking just beyond the horizon. A bad harvest, a prolonged drought, an unforeseen flood, a pestilence that destroys your crops. Any one of these can plunge your entire village into desperate starvation. Imagine the utter terror when you look at your fields, your lifeblood, and see them ruined. The collective dread that settles over the community is suffocating. You see your neighbors grow thinner, their faces hollow, their eyes desperate. You hear the cries of starving children, and your own stomach churns with a desperate fear for your family. During famines, people resort to eating anything, roots, bark, even dirt, just to stave off the agonizing emptiness. Diseases like dysentery sweep through the weakened population, carrying away entire families. Death becomes a constant, visible companion, walking hand in hand with hunger. The sheer monotony of your diet is soul-crushing. Imagine eating essentially the same few things, prepared in the same few ways, every single day of your life. There's no variety, no culinary exploration, no joy in food. It's fuel, pure and simple, and often not enough of that. The very idea of choosing what you want to eat, of having a range of flavors and textures, is utterly alien. For you, every meal is a reminder of your poverty, your subservience, your struggle. The taste of plain, coarse bread and watery pottage is the taste of your pure hell, a constant echo of deprivation and unending need. If you can call the shallow, fitful sleep you experience waking, with a dull ache in your chest, it's been there for days, a tightening, a persistent cough that rasps in your throat. You dismiss it, as you dismiss so many other aches and pains. A peasant cannot afford to be sick. To be sick is to be weak. To be weak is to be unable to work. To be unable to work is to starve. So you push through. You ignore the growing fever, the chilling sweats, the difficulty in drawing a full breath. But this time, it feels different. This time, the ache is deeper, the cough more violent, bringing up phlegm that you can't quite place. This is the insidious, ever-present reality of medieval life. Disease and death are not exceptions. They are companions, constant shadows walking beside you and your family, ready to claim you at any moment. Imagine living in a world utterly devoid of even the most basic understanding of medicine, where germ theory is a fantastical concept from an unimaginable future. When sickness strikes, you have no antibiotics, number pain relievers, beyond perhaps some herbal concoctions, no sterile bandages, no clean hospital beds. Your body is a fragile vessel, constantly assaulted by pathogens you can neither see nor comprehend. The unsanitary conditions of your hovel, Segment 3's den of misery, are a perfect breeding ground. The shared living space with animals, the accumulated waste just outside your door, the contaminated water from the communal well or stream, the omnipresent fleas, lice, and rats, all are vectors for unseen terrors. You drink water that is teeming with bacteria. Eat food that is often contaminated. Breathe air thick with smoke and the exhalations of diseased bodies. A simple cut incurred while working in the fields or chopping wood is not a minor inconvenience. It is a potential death sentence. Without antiseptic, without proper wound care, even a small abrasion can fester, turn red, swell with pus, and spread infection throughout your body. You might develop a fever, shiver uncontrollably, and eventually, the infection could lead to gangrene, claiming a limb, or even more likely, overwhelm your system, leading to a slow, agonizing death by sepsis. You've seen it happen countless times to neighbors, to kin, to children. The fear is palpable, a constant underlying hum beneath the surface of your daily struggle. Childbirth is perhaps the most terrifying ordeal for a woman, and often for the entire family. There are no trained doctors, no sterile environments, no pain medication. Childbirth happens in your smoky, dim hovel, assisted by an elderly woman from the village, a midwife whose knowledge is based on superstition and generations of trial and error, not medical science. Imagine the excruciating pain, the risk of hemorrhage, the fear of infection after the delivery. You watch your wife go through this, knowing that each birth could easily be her last. And even if she survives, the baby's chances are grim. Infant and child mortality rates are astronomical. You have learned to steel your heart, to hold your newborn with a bittersweet tenderness, knowing that a significant portion of your children will not live to see their first birthday. They succumb to fevers, to childhood diseases like measles or diphtheria, to malnutrition, to respiratory infections exacerbated by the smoky air of your hovel. Imagine the grief, a raw, aching hole in your chest that becomes a too frequent visitor. You bury them in the churchyard, tiny bundles wrapped in linen, their brief lives a flicker of hope extinguished too soon. You name them, you love them fiercely, but a part of you is always preparing for the inevitable. Each surviving child feels like a small miracle, a defiance against the brutal odds. You've seen families lose every single child, their hopes and future shattered, leaving them with nothing but their unrelenting labor. The diseases that sweep through your village are not isolated incidents. They are widespread epidemics. Dysentery, caused by contaminated water and food, ravages the population, leaving bodies weakened and dehydrated. Fevers of unknown origin, perhaps malaria from stagnant water or typhus from lice, burn through your community. Respiratory illnesses from the perpetual smoke and damp are common killers. And then there are the scourges, the truly terrifying plagues that arrive seemingly from nowhere and decimate entire villages. The Black Death, when it sweeps through Europe, isn't just a historical event. It is an apocalyptic nightmare that empties entire communities, leaving corpses in its wake, the stench of death permeating the air. Imagine the horror of seeing your neighbors fall, one after another, their bodies racked with grotesque symptoms, knowing that you or your loved ones could be next, with absolutely no defense, no understanding, no escape. You cling to prayer, to desperate superstitions, as the only weapons against an invisible enemy that brings pure, unadulterated terror. Your average lifespan, if you manage to survive childhood, is depressingly short, perhaps 30 to 35 years. By the time you are 40, you are an old man or woman. your body ravaged by a lifetime of hard labor, malnutrition, and illness. Your teeth are rotten or missing, your joints are arthritic, your vision is dim, your hearing is fading. You look far older than your actual years, a testament to the brutal toll your existence has taken on your physical form. There's no retirement, no pension, no social safety net. You work until you physically cannot anymore, and then you become a burden, dependent on your children if they are able and willing to support you. The concept of a comfortable old age, of enjoying your twilight years, is utterly foreign. Your old age is simply a prolongation of suffering, a slower march towards the inevitable. When death finally claims you, it's often without dignity. In the crowded, smoky confines of your hovel, surrounded by the familiar smells of animals and illness, your body, already frail, succumbs to a fever, a cough, an infection that your weakened system can no longer fight. There are no elaborate medical interventions, no attempts to prolong life. The end comes swiftly or slowly, but always inevitably. Your passing is mourned, of course, but it is also an expected part of the fabric of life, a common occurrence. Your body is prepared simply, wrapped in a shroud, and carried to the communal burial ground next to the church, often without a coffin, simply placed into the earth you spent your life tilling. No headstone marks your final resting place, just a simple mound of earth, soon to be indistinguishable from the countless others who share the same fate. Consider your modern life, where medical science has conquered so many of these medieval terrors. You have access to clean water, sanitation, vaccinations, antibiotics. Childbirth is a relatively safe process, and children are expected to survive into adulthood. You live a significantly longer, healthier life, with diseases often manageable or curable. For you, the peasant, this constant, lurking threat of disease and the overwhelming certainty of an early, often painful death is not just a harsh reality. It is a core component of your pure hell, a relentless reminder of your vulnerability and helplessness in a world that offers little comfort and less hope. As a peasant in medieval Europe, your life is dominated by two immense powers: the temporal authority of your Lord and the spiritual authority of the Church. While your Lord might control your body and your labor, the Church holds an even more profound sway. It controls your soul, your eternal destiny. And this control is exercised not through love and grace alone, but through fear, obligation, and the relentless extraction of your meager resources. Forget the idea of a gentle, comforting spiritual guide. For you, the Church is often another oppressive force, demanding its share of your suffering and promising salvation only at a steep price. Imagine your local church, a simple stone or wooden building, perhaps the grandest structure in your village, after the Lord's manner. It's not just a place of worship. It's the center of your social life, the focal point of your week, and the constant reminder of your spiritual duties. Every Sunday, you trudge there, your coarse clothes smelling of smoke and earth, your mind heavy with the week's toil. You sit on the cold, hard benches, or more likely, stand throughout the long Latin Mass, a language you don't understand, spoken by a priest whose sermons are often about sin, damnation, and the fiery pits of hell that await the wicked. The fear of eternal damnation is real, a terrifying prospect that gnaws at your soul. You are taught that every transgression, Every moment of doubt, every unconfessed sin, could condemn you to an eternity of torment. This fear is a powerful motivator, ensuring your compliance, your obedience, and your continued financial support for the church. The most tangible manifestation of the church's grip is the tithe. Imagine cultivating your crops, tending your few animals, knowing full well that a full tenth of everything you produce every single year is not for your family, not for your Lord, but for God and His church. A tenth of your precious grain harvest, a tenth of your meager flock's wool, a tenth of your eggs, your milk, your honey. This is not a voluntary donation. It is a mandatory tax, enforced with the full spiritual weight of the church and often with the temporal backing of the Lord. You watch as your sacks of grain, your baskets of eggs, your small cheeses are carried away to the church's granary or rectory. It feels like another constant bleeding, another drain on your already threadbare existence. This is money and food that could feed your hungry children, provide for a much-needed repair to your hovel, or simply offer a small margin of safety against famine. But it is not yours to keep. To refuse to pay the tithe is not just a financial transgression. It is a sin, an act of defiance against God Himself, carrying with it the terrifying threat of excommunication, a spiritual death sentence that bars you from the sacraments and, you believe, from heaven itself. The local priest, often drawn from the peasant class himself, is a complex figure. He is your spiritual guide, the only one who can administer the sacraments that are essential for your salvation: baptism, confession, communion, last rites. He teaches you what little you know of Scripture, translates the mysteries of faith, and offers comfort in times of grief. But he is also a representative of a powerful, wealthy institution that lives off your labor. He might be a good, compassionate man, or he might be lazy, corrupt, and uninterested in your plight. Regardless, his power over your spiritual life is immense. He tells you what to believe, how to live, and what punishments await you if you stray. You confess your sins to him, whispering your meager transgressions in the dim confines of the church, hoping for absolution. Terrified of divine retribution, the church also dictates the rhythm of your year, imposing numerous feast days and fast days. On feast days, you are often forbidden from working. A welcome reprieve, but one that still means a day of lost labor on your own fields, exacerbating your economic struggle. On fast days, you are forbidden from eating meat, relying on even more meager fare, further weakening your already malnourished body. These religious observances, while offering some spiritual solace, also add to your physical burden and your economic precariousness. You learn to navigate this intricate web of religious law, always striving to avoid sin, always praying for salvation, always mindful of the endless obligations. Beyond the most rudimentary religious instruction is an impossible dream for you. You are illiterate, as are 99% of your fellow peasants. The only books you see are the priest's Latin texts, carefully guarded and understood by only a select few. This illiteracy keeps you in a state of intellectual dependence, unable to read the Scriptures for yourself, unable to question the interpretations provided by the church, unable to access any knowledge beyond what is verbally communicated. Your worldview is shaped by what the priest tells you, by the stories of saints and demons, miracles and damnation. Superstition thrives in this environment, mingling with formal religious doctrine. You believe in charms, in omens, in the power of relics, in the constant battle between good and evil spirits. Your understanding of the world is limited, often fearful, and entirely guided by the spiritual narratives presented to you. The promise of salvation, of an afterlife free from suffering, is the one great hope offered to you. It's the ultimate consolation, the light at the end of a long, dark tunnel of earthly misery. You cling to it with desperate tenacity, believing that your endless toil, your suffering, your poverty will be rewarded in heaven. This belief is what often keeps you going, what provides meaning to your otherwise brutal existence. But even this hope is conditional, dependent on your strict adherence to the Church's dictates, your confessions, your attendance at Mass, and, crucially, your continued payment of tithes and offerings. It's a deferred reward, a promise that requires constant sacrifice in the present. Imagine living under such intense spiritual pressure. Every aspect of your life is imbued with religious significance, and every misstep carries the weight of eternal consequence. There's no separation of church and state, no freedom of religion. There is only the Church and its absolute authority over your spiritual and moral life. You are born into its embrace, taught its doctrines from infancy, and live in constant awareness of its power. This isn't just about faith, it's about control, about a system that extracts your resources and your obedience in exchange for the promise of an afterlife. A promise that often feels like the only thing you have left to hold on to. The Church, in its unwavering demands and its terrifying pronouncements, forms another fundamental pillar of your pure hell, albeit one that offers the faintest glimmer of ultimate redemption beyond this life of suffering. Forget the abstract ideals of justice, of innocent until proven guilty, of trials by a jury of your peers, or of legal codes that apply equally to all citizens. For you, a peasant in medieval Europe, law and order are not concepts of fairness and impartiality. They are tools wielded by your Lord to maintain his power, protect his interests, and enforce your absolute subservience. Justice is swift, often arbitrary, and almost always skewed against you. Your very existence is framed by a system designed to keep you at the bottom, with little recourse against the whims of those above you. This isn't a benevolent system. It's another facet of your pure hell, a constant threat hanging over your head. Imagine the manor court or the local 100 court, held periodically by the Lord's steward or bailiff, or even the Lord himself. This is your only encounter with justice. There are no grand courthouses, no learned barristers, no complex legal arguments. It's a rough and ready affair, often held in the open air or in a communal hall. You stand before your superiors, often illiterate, without understanding the legal jargon, if there even is any beyond simple pronouncements, and certainly without representation. Your testimony, if you are even allowed to give it, carries little weight against the word of a freeman, let alone the Lord's officials. Most of the crimes you might commit are petty transgressions in the grand scheme of things, but in the micro-world of the manor, they are significant. You might be accused of allowing your few animals to stray onto the Lord's domain, trampling his crops. Or perhaps you failed to perform your allotted labor service to the Lord, even if you were sick or tending to a dying child. Maybe you gathered too much firewood from the communal woods, exceeding your allowance. Or you poached a rabbit out of desperation, its small body a fleeting hope against your family's gnawing hunger. These aren't just minor infractions. They are challenges to the Lord's authority, and they are met with severe consequences. The punishments are harsh, designed to deter, to humiliate, and to reinforce the Lord's power. For minor offenses, you might face a hefty fine, which, for a peasant, is a crippling blow, pushing your family further into debt and deeper into poverty. You might have to pay in kind, giving up precious grain or a chicken, a piece of your future sustenance. Imagine being fined for something as simple as your goat wandering too far, knowing that that fine represents days of labor, food for your children that you will now have to go without. More serious transgressions could lead to public humiliation, spending time in the stocks or the pillory, exposed to the elements, pelted with rotten vegetables and mockery by your neighbors. This isn't just physical discomfort. It's a profound social shaming that leaves an indelible mark on your reputation and your family's standing. Your bare feet might be plunged into icy water for hours, or you might be ordered to perform additional, back-breaking labor for the Lord, extending your already brutal work week for grave offenses, particularly those against the Lord's property or his person. The punishments become truly brutal. Mutilation is a real threat. Loss of a hand for theft, blinding for certain crimes, or branding with a hot iron, leaving an permanent searing mark that identifies you as a criminal forever. And the ultimate penalty, death by hanging, is always lurking for the most serious infringements, particularly for poaching the Lord's valuable game. Imagine the terror of seeing a fellow villager caught in a moment of desperate hunger, led to the gallows, his life extinguished for the sake of a deer. This isn't abstract justice. It's a visceral, terrifying display of raw power, a stark warning to all who dare to step out of line. You have no rights in the modern sense. You are not equal before the law. If a freeman or, God forbid, the Lord himself accuses you, your word counts for little. There is no appeal process beyond begging for mercy from the very person who is prosecuting you. Your status as a serf, a villain, places you firmly outside the protections that might be afforded to more privileged members of society. You are considered property, and your life is viewed as less valuable than that of your social superiors. The law exists to protect their interests, not yours. This lack of legal recourse fosters a deep sense of powerlessness and injustice. You endure abuses, large and small, knowing that challenging them could lead to even worse consequences. The Lord's officials might demand extra labor, seize more of your harvest than is due, or even physically assault you, and you are expected to simply endure it. To complain is to risk further retribution. You learn to internalize this injustice, to accept it as an unchangeable fact of your existence. Your only form of justice might be quiet acts of resistance, sabotaging the Lord's plow, working slightly slower when unobserved, or finding small ways to cheat the tithe collector. But even these carry immense risk. The social hierarchy is rigid, immutable, and enforced by this brutal legal system. You are a peasant, and you will always be a peasant. There is no social mobility, no way to climb out of your station through talent or hard work. The laws, the customs, and the very structure of society are designed to keep you exactly where you are, serving those above you. This isn't a meritocracy. It's a caste system where your birth determines your entire life's trajectory. The idea of someone from your station rising to become a knight, a merchant prince, or a scholar is utterly fantastical. A story for minstrels, not a real possibility. So, when you think of law and order, don't think of protectors and fair arbiters. Think of the chilling voice of the bailiff, the looming threat of the Lord's punishment, the public humiliation, the crippling fines, and the ever-present danger of mutilation or death. Think of a system that is rigged against you from the very beginning, designed to keep you in your place through fear and force. This is not justice, it is control. And this arbitrary, brutal, and profoundly unjust system is yet another grinding wheel in the pure hell of your medieval peasant existence, your life. As a peasant in medieval Europe is not measured in years, but in seasons. It's a relentless, cyclical existence, dictated by the turning of the earth and the capricious whims of the weather. There's no 9 to 5, no weekend leisure, no concept of free time for self-improvement or hobbies. There is only the continuous, unbroken rhythm of agricultural labor, a merciless cycle that binds you to the land from the moment you wake until you collapse into exhausted sleep. Imagine a life where every single month, every single week demands a different, yet equally backbreaking form of toil, leaving no room for true rest or escape. The year begins, perhaps in late winter or early spring. The ground is still frozen or sodden, the air biting, but the first hints of new life stir. This is the time for initial plowing, breaking the soil for the spring crops. You are out there, once again, with your oxen and your primitive plow, feeling the biting wind whip around your threadbare clothes, your hands stiff with cold. This is followed by the spring sowing, painstakingly scattering seeds that represent your family's future. The hope of a good harvest is a fragile thing, easily crushed by a late frost or too much rain. Then comes the constant vigil against pests and weeds, spending endless hours bent double, pulling tiny green invaders from your fields. Your body, still recovering from the lean, cold winter, is immediately plunged back into intense physical labor. Summer arrives, bringing a brief period of warmth, but no real respite. This is the time for haymaking, a grueling task. You must scythe the tall grass, a repetitive, powerful motion that requires immense strength and skill. Then spread it to dry in the sun, turning it constantly before gathering it into huge, heavy bales. Imagine the sun beating down on your unprotected head, the insects buzzing around you, the dust and pollen irritating your lungs. This hay is vital for feeding your animals through the next winter, so it must be done efficiently and completely, no matter how tired you are. Then it's back to tending the growing crops, weeding, mending fences, and ensuring that everything is on track for the most critical period of the year. Your days are long, from pre-dawn until well after sunset, fueled by meager food and the sheer will to survive. Autumn is the harvest, the culmination of all your year's efforts. As detailed in segment 2, it's a mad dash against time and weather, a collective village effort to bring in the precious grain. The urgency is immense, the labor relentless. You work from the first light of dawn until the last rays of sun disappear, often by moonlight if the need is truly desperate. Your body is pushed to its absolute breaking point, your muscles screaming in protest, your hands raw and bleeding. This is followed by threshing, separating the grain from the chaff, a dusty, noisy, lung-irritating process that fills the autumn air. The granaries slowly fill, bringing a brief, fragile sense of security, but also the realization that a significant portion of this hard-won bounty will be taken by the Lord and the Church. After the main harvest, there's the autumn plowing, turning over the stubble to prepare the fields for the winter wheat and to enrich the soil for the next spring, and, of course, the collection of firewood for the long, cold winter ahead. A task that involves felling trees, chopping logs, and hauling them back to the village. A grueling, dangerous undertaking. Winter arrives, and with it, a change in the type of labor, but certainly not a cessation. While the fields lie fallow under a blanket of snow, your work continues. This is the time for repairs, mending your hovel, repairing tools, weaving baskets, spinning wool into coarse thread, making new clothes. You spend hours hunched over by the dim light of your hearth, your fingers stiff with cold, performing tasks that are essential for survival. This is also the time for animal husbandry, ensuring your precious livestock survive the harsh weather, moving them into your hovel for warmth, collecting their manure for fertilizer. You might be called upon to help with building projects for the Lord, or to clear roads of snow. The cold itself is an enemy, seeping into your bones, making every movement an effort, increasing your vulnerability to illness. Hunger is often at its most acute during these months, as stored provisions dwindle. The long, dark nights stretch endlessly, filled with the pervasive cold and the constant gnawing fear of starvation or sickness. This brutal, unyielding cycle leaves you perpetually exhausted, perpetually on the brink. There is no concept of a vacation or a day off for leisure. The very idea would be absurd. Your body is a tool, a machine designed for constant labor, and it is worn down year after year by the unrelenting demands. Your hands are permanently gnarled, your back permanently stooped, your face etched with lines of hardship. You are old before your time, your physical prime consumed by this endless grind. Small pockets of respite do exist, the occasional feast day, a religious festival, a Sunday Mass. These brief moments offer a chance for communal gathering, for a simple meal, perhaps with a rare treat, for storytelling, for a momentary escape from the relentless rhythm of work. But even these are often intertwined with religious obligations, and they are fleeting, quickly swallowed by the return to toil. The very few moments of joy are so precious precisely because they are so rare and so brief, a flicker of light against an overwhelming darkness. Consider your modern life, where you separate work from leisure, where you have weekends, holidays, and vacations. You control your schedule, choose your activities, and enjoy periods of true rest and rejuvenation. For you, the medieval peasant, such concepts are unimaginable luxuries. Your life is an unbroken chain of physical demands, dictated by the sun, the seasons, and the insatiable needs of the land and your Lord. This relentless, unchanging, physically destructive rhythm of the seasons is not just a hard way to live. It is the very essence of your pure hell, a ceaseless, unending grind that slowly but surely wears down your body and spirit until nothing is left. You are now deep into this journey, your mind hopefully reeling from the sheer, unvarnished brutality of medieval peasant life. You've experienced the iron collar of the manor, the back-breaking ballet of the fields, the den of misery that is your hovel, the despair of your diet, the relentless march of disease and death, the church's tight grip and the Lord's injustice. You've endured the unrelenting rhythms of the seasons, year after grinding year. Now, as we draw to a close, let's confront the most heartbreaking aspect, the faint flicker of hope, or rather, the stark, brutal reality of its absence. Where does hope lie in such a life? How does one survive, let alone endure, without the promise of something better? For you, the peasant, the answer is profoundly bleak. Imagine staring out from your smoky hovel across the fields you've toiled your entire life towards the distant horizon. What do you see? Do you see opportunity, a chance for a different life, a path to upward mobility, to escape this unending cycle of poverty and servitude? The crushing truth is, you see almost nothing. The concept of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is utterly alien, a cruel joke that makes no sense in your world. You are born a peasant, and you will almost certainly die a peasant. Your fate is sealed by your birth, by the laws of the land, and by the immovable structure of medieval society. Social mobility is a myth, a fairy tale told to children in another era. The feudal system is a rigid pyramid, with you at the very bottom. To even dream of becoming a freeman, let alone a craftsman, a merchant, or a scholar, is a delusion. Such positions are inherited, granted by powerful patrons, or require a level of wealth and education that is simply unattainable for you. The closest you might come to advancement is perhaps being chosen by the Lord to be a reeve, overseeing your fellow peasants, a position that earns you a few meager privileges, but also makes you an object of resentment within your own community. Even then, you remain bound to the manor, your fundamental status unchanged. Rebellion, a desperate and often violent attempt to break free, is a terrifying and almost always doomed prospect. You've heard whispers of peasant revolts, of brave souls who rose up against their lords, demanding better conditions. But you've also heard the brutal stories of their suppression. Imagine the overwhelming might of the Lord's armed men, the trained knights, the well-equipped soldiers, descending upon your ill-armed, poorly organized, and starving villagers. The retribution is swift, merciless, and designed to send a chilling message to anyone contemplating such audacity. Leaders are executed, villages are burned, and the survivors are subjected to even harsher conditions. Their brief rebellion becoming another chapter in their ongoing pure hell. The fear of such a brutal reprisal keeps most in line, forcing you to swallow your resentment and continue your endless toil. Your only true escape. The ultimate hope is often found in the promise of the afterlife. The Church, as we discussed, demands much from you in this life, but it offers the tantalizing prospect of eternal salvation, a heavenly reward for your earthly suffering. This is the comfort you cling to, the spiritual balm that soothes your aching soul. You believe that your endless hard labor, your piety, your acceptance of your lot, will earn you a place in paradise, free from hunger, pain, and servitude. This deferred hope, this promise of a better tomorrow beyond this life, is often the only thing that keeps you from succumbing to utter despair. It's a powerful psychological mechanism, a way to find meaning in a life that seems otherwise meaningless. Yet, even this hope is tinged with the bleak reality of your existence. You live with the constant understanding that your life, as you know it, is one of unrelenting hardship. You are born into a world that demands everything from you and gives back precious little. You are a cog in a vast, unchanging machine, your individual desires and ambitions utterly irrelevant. The concept of personal fulfillment, of achieving your dreams, is a luxury reserved for those far, far above you. Your dream is simpler: to survive the winter, to have enough food to feed your children, to escape the next epidemic, to not incur the Lord's wrath. These are not grand aspirations. They are basic, desperate needs. Resignation becomes your default state. You learn to accept your fate, not with joy, but with a weary, pragmatic determination. You find small pockets of solace in your community, in the shared experience of suffering, in the simple joys of a child's laughter, a sunny day, or a rare feast. You learn to make do, to endure, to put one foot in front of the other, because there is simply no other choice. Your resilience is forged in the fires of constant adversity, a testament to the human spirit's astonishing capacity to survive even in the most inhumane conditions. But it is a resilience born of necessity, not of optimism. As you now return from this harrowing journey into the past, back to your modern comforts, your soft bed, your warm room, your endless choices, remember the peasant. Remember the gnawing hunger, the aching body, the constant fear, the utter lack of freedom, the bleak horizon. Your life, with all its stresses and challenges, is a paradise compared to their pure hell. Take a moment to truly appreciate the water from your tap, the food in your fridge, the warmth of your heating, the freedom to choose your path, and the simple luxury of a comfortable, undisturbed night's sleep. The medieval peasant lived a life that makes our worst anxieties seem trivial, a life where hope was a precious, almost unattainable commodity, and enduring was the highest aspiration. And that, my friends, is why being a peasant in medieval Europe was pure hell.